Hey, what's good, fellow thinkers, and welcome back to Freeman Philosophy or Black American Philosophy. So today I want to talk to y'all about like how private beliefs are not private. I forgot the person who said that, but I want to show you what that phrase really means as far as when it comes to how men and women will have thoughts that they believe and then they will act on those beliefs, which will then show that even though I have this private belief, it still affects other people. So we're going to start with the women because females first. And as you can see, we're taking it back to the whiteboard, old school, getting theoretical style. This is a belief that not every woman has, but enough of them have it to be able to say that this is something that is believable to see. Or if it doesn't happen all the time, it happens too much. But so women will kind of believe that they're always right in whatever it is that they do. And this is just a private belief that they hold amongst themselves. But what happens is that belief starts to then spill into things like family. Now you have relationships with people. Maybe you don't want those relationships with them. Now you have children by said person that you may not even want to be with in general. So this kind of this creates a situation where now you're in a relationship with someone who always believes that they are right. If they're right, you're always wrong. And then this would tend to push the father away from the relationship. And then now you have the family, which normally is consistent of a single mother and other kids. And now they start to believe we're always right because mom is always right. And sometimes she will actually confirm this to them, maybe not saying it directly that you're always right, but I'll always believe my child before I believe anybody else. And this belief now that she implanted into her kids make life harder for people who are, let's say, teachers, nurses, doctors, and retail workers, because now they have to all deal with the product of this woman believing that she's always right, putting that onto her children, and then putting her children out to the world, which is an extension of her, making the lives of all of these professions and many more much more difficult than they already are. And so that creates a lot of dissension between these people and these families, which leads to sometimes abusive, maybe, or understaffed teachers and program workers who don't have enough energy and time to deal with all of the mess or deal with this that these kids believe, because they believe, since their mom always told them that they'll believe them no matter what, they'll believe that they're always right, even though we can see they graduate in life with F+ honors. And these healthcare professionals, maybe there's not enough of them, or maybe they're the doctors that have been sponsored by big pharma to just push drugs to your kids and not actually see what's wrong with it, because they don't care, because you don't care enough to tell your children that they're wrong, because you don't care enough to tell yourself that you're wrong or that you can be wrong. And so now, rather than deal with all of that, helping to raise this woman's kids, these doctors would just much rather push these pills to them, and plus they probably get bigger paychecks to do so. And then we have hostile retail workers and or subpar or lack of customer service or lack of retail workers in general, because they don't get paid enough to deal with disrespectful children, and they don't get paid enough to deal with their disrespectful parents, because they just don't make enough to be dealing with that, which anybody can understand. And it leads to these people wanting to quit their jobs and not even come back. And it might be the same for all of these professions. They may not even want to work with them anymore. And then now you have a world full of people who don't want to work together and don't want to help anybody, because everybody's pretty much out for self, because now everybody's starting to believe that, hey, if they're always right, then I'm going to be always be right. And unless, well, we went to school for this, or we work in this, or we have expertise in this. So now it's just like a us, like now it becomes like a my family versus everybody else in the world. And then now we have a bunch of people and a bunch of kids who are now mad at the world because the world is not giving them what they think that they deserve or what they want, or they just become reclusive and they just hide off on their own and just withdraw from everything themselves, or eventually they turn their anger and their hatred out on their own mothers who gave them the game that doesn't actually help them in life, because these children eventually start to understand that we're not always right. And most of the time, mother does not understand that she's not always right. And all because she had this one belief that always stuck inside of her head. She believed that she was always right. And if she wasn't right, nobody else is right. And this creates a whole chain of events that eventually leads to the future being disgruntled, or maybe even to the lack of a future thereof. Now let's go on to the male side of things. Now for men, it's a little bit different. Doesn't necessarily involve kids that much, but sex validates my existence as a man and my manhood. Basically, these little skirts are notches in the belt. And because of these, it validates my existence as a man and my manhood. So now I am a man because of my coital conquest. This leads to these people, or these men, to reduce the manhood of other men because they may be virgin. And so, or if they're not a virgin, if they just haven't had much, coital conquest or womb access in general, they will reduce them, and they'll just reduce their manhood in totality and kind of tell them that you're not necessarily you're not really worthy of being a man because of your conquest hasn't bore any type of fruit that, that would let me know that, like, oh yeah, you're worthy, because these women in there giving that womb access to you solidifies you and validates you as a man. And this leads to these type of men that normally come from having to or doing whatever they can to gain womb access. Now, if they have to lie to women or abuse them in order to get it, they will become this right here, the bad boy, that a lot of people always talk about. They will then use that to say, like, a lot of women say men are trash, so I'm going to live up to it and I'm going to give you what you want because you're going to spread your legs for it. Then you have these quote unquote good guys who are like, oh, I'm going to try to do it the right way. I'm not going to be that up there. I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to, bring flowers and do all this good guy stuff. And they're going to do all that stuff. But then they're going to find out that it doesn't bear any actual fruit because women don't take that seriously. But then also, more dangerously, it leads to these dangerous guys who will end up they see coital conquest as a necessary part of, their validation. And sometimes if things don't go their way, whether it be from the good guy stance or even from the bad boy stance, honestly, both of these, it can turn into these dangerous men who kind of give up on rule and order and just believe in taking whatever they want. And this leads to these things. The bad boy either leaves the relationship, like how we saw in the other one, he can't stand always being wrong. Either he leaves or he lowers himself, or he remains in a relationship that he may not want just so that he can continue to have womb access which validates him as a man. Validates him as a man. And for these good guys, they either they don't get the skirts, because that's not what, a lot of women really, that's not what not a lot, but that's not what enough women go for. They don't go for this whole good guy thing, because this good guy thing is low-key kind of creepy. But they end up not getting this, or after not getting it, they start to see that their life has no real value or not much value, and they start to contemplate doing a Susie or committing a Susie. And then the more dangerous part of this is sometimes these dangerous guys right here will end up taking it by force or stealing it. And if you don't know what this means, it's just a bunch, it's some not so nice stuff that happens. All right. So then finally what this leads to is this leads to men who are now in father-like positions that they didn't even want, because all they wanted to do was just get the validation of the cooter so that they can, have their value as a man, and that's all that they wanted. But now they're stuck with the ramifications of what happens when you engage in coitus. You open the possibility of, parenthood. And now these men are in relationships that they don't want, and they have children that they don't want. In a relationship that they don't want to be in. All because they wanted to validate their existence by having cooter. And you also have these men who are lowered in a relationship, and now they're in a really unhappy relationship. This is more like a baby father, baby daddy type of thing. And this is more about being unhappy and being in a miserable relationship. But they tolerate this and they put up with that is because they get consistent cooter. And for these good guys, quote unquote, they either become passport bros or they play that game of hangman and actually complete it. If you understand what I'm saying. They play that game of hangman and they actually get the word. Or they don't get the word. And from these dangerous guys who take the skirts by force, now you're left with a bunch of women who are now, have been victimized and they've been hurt, and now they carry this hurt out into the dating market and into the general, because they've been hurt and now they can't trust men anymore. So this is another example of how when you have this one belief that may exist in your head, it will always start to come and then permeate outside of you, and then it will start to find itself in other men and then promote itself through other men, create different chains of events that eventually come to these destructive ends, all because these beliefs are not beliefs that are based off of any actual values. These beliefs are just things that people want to believe, whether it be lack of information or lack of understanding or ego boosting or whatever. Both of these scenarios of these private beliefs that people have, and these are the type of beliefs that people don't have consciously. They have it more so subconsciously, where they're not really able to notice it themselves unless they see themselves in an objective way and not get stuck in just they have to just review themselves, or have someone outside of them tell them and show them the things that they say and or do that would show that this is how they act based on what it is that they truly believe. But this is why having private beliefs are not just private. I'll give a verbal example of white people. Let's say they believe that they're better than black people. If they feel like they're better than black people, they're always going to be ones to kind of push for criminal things and punishments on black people, even pushing for harsher sentences for black people and black children, while whenever their people do something, it's kind of like, it's not that bad. They didn't do that much. They didn't they didn't do all the drugs, or they didn't, shoot up all the people. So it's like, we can't just say that there's something wrong with them, or we'll just say that there's something wrong with them, but we're not gonna totally write them out or whatnot. We're not gonna punish everybody in the white community for the mishaps of one white person. But then again, it's like we're gonna punish the entire black American community for the actions of anybody melanated that does anything wrong. Like, you'll start to see how these people act, and they're acting on what they believe. They believe that they are better than us. They believe that they're more superior to us, that they're superior to us in general. And this is what happens when you have these beliefs. You will always act out on them. So no matter how much you like to say, like, oh no, I wouldn't do this, or I wouldn't do that, or if this is just in my personal life, it doesn't affect you, so why would you care? It does affect people. It may not affect you in the way that you think, but it does affect you. I believe, what's that Kendrick Lamar song when he's like, I'm a killer, he's a killer, she's a killer, B. Walking zombies, a bunch of zombies walking around and trying to scratch that itch. Germophobic, hetero and homophobic, covering your lies, motives, hide your eyes and pose for the pic. Like, that song literally itself describes exactly what this is saying. Is that, even the men who go to church and pray like they're supposed to still kill people too. Their deaths are just a bit slower. What he's saying is that if you have any of these negative beliefs or any of these toxic beliefs, you are going to put that toxicity back out into the world. It'll always happen. It's always going to happen. Because what you believe is not just what you think, and it doesn't just stay in your head. If you understand what a belief is, and shout out to Nero Knowledge for this. A belief is a thought that you repeat over and over again in your head. So when you repeat that over and over again in your head, that sex validates my existence as a man in my manhood. Sex validates my existence as a man in my manhood. Sex validates my existence as a man in my manhood. Or if you repeat, I'm always right. I'm 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 always right. I'm always right. I'm always right. I'm always right. If you keep repeating these, it will become a belief, and that belief is what you use and what you base your decisions off of. So, like what Kendrick was saying is that, everybody's just a walking zombie killing each other or killing themselves, because that's what happens when you have these toxic beliefs. And especially when you leave these beliefs unchecked, it will also create the entire situation that you see every single time, and then you'll just sit there wondering, why does this keep happening to me, or woe is me? That's because you're failing to understand your beliefs and see where your beliefs are really coming from. But this is just me and my philosophy, and this is my example of it. I would love to know what you guys think about this example, and whether or not you believe that these are really, truly the way that these things kind of pan out and play out. But thanks again for following me and my philosophy. If you like what you're hearing, like the video, subscribe to the channel and whatnot. And I always want to leave y'all with a quote. The unexamined life is not one worth living. Take time to understand if this is how your life is being lived. Are you living your life based on these type of beliefs? And is it producing these kind of results that you see around? All right. Have a good one. Peace.